Okay, we're getting started a little bit late. I'd like to call to order the Brushy Creek Regional Utility Authority Board of Directors meeting for Wednesday, January 25th, starting 6:17. We do have a quorum, but we're waiting on one of our members to arrive. And so we are going to go into recess and reconvene when he arrives. Good enough. I'd like to call back into session the Brushy Creek Regional Utility Authority Board of Directors meeting, and we are reconvening at 6:23, and I'll call the roll. Vice President Baker.
Here.
Secretary Thompson. Director Anderson.
Here.
Director Flores.
Here.
And Director Kirkland.
Here.
So we have a quorum, and we will move on to item 3, citizen communication. Anyone signed up to speak? Anyone like to address the board? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 4, approval of the minutes. Consider approval of the BCRUA meeting minutes for October 26, 2022.
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right. And I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Jason.
Oh. Aye.
Motion passes. Item 5A, consider staff report regarding the 36-inch underwater pipeline. Do you want me to call them together or separate?
Separately.
Okay.
Good. Thank you, Madam President. I am happy to introduce a couple of reports to update you on some items that we have previously discussed. For the staff report on the 36-inch underwater pipeline, I want to introduce Jason Christensen from Walker Partners. He's a professional engineer, and he's the project manager of a lot of these projects. He's the engineer standing behind Aaron Archer for almost everything that we do here, and he's been with us for a long time. He designed Phase 1C. He's been involved in a lot of these other projects, and he's going to be moving forward again on the Phase 1D water treatment plant expansion. So I will call him up if we have any questions on this item. This item is, what I had promised you is to update you on the final cost of the 36-inch underwater pipeline repair. The original contract that we entered into with Vail Construction was about $1.6 million. Then ultimately there were some changes made, some things they ran into during construction, and that added $879,000. I want to break those down for you and answer any questions you might have. The first component was $385,000, and that was 4 days more of dive time. Understanding that obviously the divers' time was very costly, but hopefully you saw some pictures of what their rig looked like, and of course they had to have a lot of divers to be able to work down at that level in the dark and be able to do their decompression. So just to break it down, during the first pipeline break, we had what was called a double valve installed to help facilitate the repair, and we had to use one that we could get quickly. And then during the construction of the final repair, the divers had gone down and said they really felt like we needed a more appropriate double ball that was one we had ordered in the interim. Our engineers agreed and recommended that we go ahead and replace the old double valve and put the new one in, and that would help eliminate pipe movement and loads that were being seen by that pipe. So that took a couple days, and then we also, right as we were finishing up, and they were putting the whole thing back together, the divers found out that one of the flanges had a torn gasket, and so it was really necessary to take the time to pull that out and put a new gasket in, and that took a couple more days. Jason, you want to come up? And you know much more of the details of that. Is there anything you would want to add to that?
If there's any questions,
Okay.
answer.
Well, I'll go to the second one, and then maybe there'll be questions. The second change really was a modification of the supports that were put in place for the pipeline. We had originally planned that the contractor was going to use basically pile drive the supports on either side of the pipeline, which wasn't our preferred method, but that was the only contractor, I guess, Vail could get at the time. And then I guess during the construction, they were able to find someone who could do drilled piers, which we felt would be a lot safer for the pipe and more secure long term. And then also we found out that the double ball valve that I referenced before really wasn't supported well, so we added 2 more drilled piers there. And so that was the original increase the cost to about, that section was about $494,000. So those 2 items really make up the bulk of the increased cost we saw during the construction. And that's all been paid for at this point. So,
That was my next question. Okay.
any questions for me or Jason?
Just a general question on the 385 for the 4 days of extra dive time. I mean, again, it's not my expertise at all. It seems pretty expensive, but how many staff are on site? I realize you have to have dive buddies and special equipment plus the expertise. So can you just kind of help me understand that cost a little bit?
I don't know how many staff they actually had out there, but it's just expensive work, difficult environment, a lot of safety precautions, and, mobilized on the lake with a dive team and the general contractor over them. So it's just each day is expensive work for them.
One thing I could add is the last invoice that we had was 98 pages long, and Jason and the Walker Partners staff went through all of them to make sure that every charge that they made us was actually used on the project.
And consistent with industry standards as far as pricing and all those things, I assume.
Consistent with what they had performed up to that point, right?
Yeah.
It was just adding more time on.
Okay.
Yeah, we did feel like we got a much more experienced contractor doing the dive work. They had they brought in equipment from all over the country, and they had a lot of safety measures that we were impressed with. For example, we were suggesting to them that they use 2 divers at a time, and they said that only impacts communication, and they feel they're much more effective when they use 1 at a time. So and they actually did get the job done in the minimal time we gave them.
And we think they did a much better job too. So it's really, we're fortunate to have them on the Phase 2 team. They could jump over and tackle this, and they were, more qualified than
Good.
folks we've used in the past.
And remind me what the plan is, like, just to, just go in and inspect that it's, obviously here we are, it's going well, but what's the plan for
Yeah,
that?
we're
I don't
still
know.
inspecting it.
Yes, we are continuing the inspections that did ultimately find that leak. So And then meanwhile, they're working hard on the replacement pipeline. I guess we're 90% design on that.
Correct. We turned in 90% yesterday for review.
Looking to open bids in April, maybe? And that,
Looking to be final in mid-February, so I'm not.
okay. And then that'll be about a year construction, so we hopefully will get that permanent solution done and not have to talk about repairs and.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things you said was that the original choice for anchoring the supports was pile driving, and the preferred method, which you were able to accomplish, was using a drilled or screwed technique. So it's kind of like the difference between put a nail on the wall and a screw in the ground. The screw holds better. I'm just thinking the simplest way to describe it for citizens that might be watching.
Well, if you call the driven pile a nail, it's only going to go down to bedrock where it's going to stop. You can't drive through the bedrock. With the drilled piers, it actually could drill into the bedrock and create a better support for the pipe system.
Okay.
Yeah, they were embedded into the limestone bedrock and providing a better foundation, including resistance against lateral forces. That was the other thing, because that seems to be what had been happening to the pipeline. And then they also felt like that would take, they could get that work done a week sooner than if they had the pile driving. So they would have been pretty difficult with zero visibility down there.
And they just had to be more careful if they're going to use driven piles, with all the commotion around that sensitive system. More kind of invasive than controllably drilling piers adjacent to it.
Any other questions? All right. About it? All right.
Thanks, Stacy.
Okay, so item 5B, consider staff report regarding the application for TWDB SWIFT 2023 funding. Here we are. It came very quickly.
Yes. So we have been talking about this for a while, the need for additional funds from the Texas Water Development Board for our Phase 2 project, the deep water intake, and Phase 1D, which is the water treatment plant expansion. Much of that was due to the cost escalations that we've seen. Fortunately, we had enough contingency in our deep water intake project that we were able to award that project, even though it came in over $25 million more than what we had planned. So we have been talking about what do we need to do to replenish those funds to make sure we have enough for the other projects. The water treatment plant expansion, and then there's a permanent power project that will for the deep water intake. So our staff have been working together to estimate what the cost would be. For example, when you're borrowing money for a contingency, you really don't know exactly how much you're going to need. Fortunately, we haven't needed any to date, but we also have a 5-year project, so the determination was made that we would go ahead and set up a contingency fund for $20 million, and then if it turned out that we needed more, we would have time to go back in and get future loans for that or determine other funds. So the total amount we are requesting for cost escalation contingency is $30 million, and it's $4 million for the water treatment plant, Phase 1D, $6 million for the permanent power cost escalation for Phase 2 power, and then $20 million for contingency. So that is apportioned out to each of the cities, and for example, Leander decided that they want to use their own local funds for this. Cedar Park has grant funds for their portion of the water treatment plant expansion. And then the city of Round Rock had determined, while they had used local funds for their portion of the Phase 2 and 1D project initially, they now would like to take advantage of the Water Development Board funds for this project. And so they will be asking for funds to basically replenish the amount that they had already spent for the cost so far, but also have loan funds for the future construction of Phase 2 and 1D and the permanent power project. So in total, I'll summarize, Cedar Park is going to request funds of about $7.6 million, and the city of Round Rock will be requesting about $90.5 million. So the total application will be for right about $98 million. Now recall that the way the SWIFT program works, we're initially going to submit an abridged application. It doesn't need board approval, but it does state what the maximum amount that we think we will need. And so that is due on February 1st. It's already prepared. We've routed it to all the 3 cities for review. So we'll go ahead and plan to submit that for these amounts. Round Rock is planning to do a multi-year loan. So they have given us how much they think they would take down over each year. So we'll put that in the application. But that can be changed in the final application. And in fact, the Water Development Board doesn't hold you to those numbers for multi-years. And they will, well, as Leander, probably Robert Powers could explain this better than anybody, but each year you can change the amount you would like. You can decide you don't want to take any, but you also are subject to whatever the interest rates are in that future year. So we will submit that, and then in April is a time frame where we will have to submit our final application. That will come to the board. I'm going to have our financial advisor come talk to you about what the rates are doing at that time before you take that vote. So that's all I was going to present, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? All right. Seeing no questions, we'll move on. Thank you. Move on to 6A, consider a resolution approving the BCRUA quarterly investment report for July 1 to September 30th, 2022. Mr. Powers.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Before I begin, I just want to point out what you've probably already seen in front of you is a corrected quarterly investment report. There's a little post-it note on the page that changed. Summary information did not change, but when the original report was produced back in October, that's the one that was in your packet, we noticed that there was an error in the allocation, the labeling between the construction funds from the 2009 issue and the SWIFT 2021. So our investment advisor corrected that report, and that's what's in front of you. Unfortunately, I didn't get that to Karen to be in your packet, so that was my bad. So, but the summary information is correct, and the allocations in the report in front of you is accurate. So for the report, this is the quarterly investment report for the month ending September. So we're looking back about 4 months ago. Interest earnings during the third quarter of the year ending September 2022 was $479,813, and for the fiscal year total, $791,391. At quarter end, the cash and investments totaled $136.5 million, which was up about $6.5 million from the previous quarter. The weighted average maturity of the investments went up from 133 days at the end of June to 164 days at the end of September. Average yield for the quarter, June through September 2022, was just under 1.7%. Want to point out that just for the month of September, the interest rates had, were already starting to go up. So the month of September, if you look just at that, it was 2.38%. Also, to kind of point out how things have changed over the last year in terms of interest rates, we all know they're going up. But a year ago, when Cedar Park and Leander closed on the Water Development Board in November of 2021, Leander and Cedar Park took some of those proceeds and invested in T-bills and commercial paper at that time. So the interest rates back then in February of 2022, we got just close to 1%, which was significantly more than the Fed funds rate at 0.25. So between a year ago to now, the Fed funds rate, which is a benchmark, has gone up from 0.25 to now it's at 4.5. So as everyone knows that the interest rates have skyrocketed. So those investments that we made last year, 2/3 of them mature this month and next month, and then the last tranche at Cedar Park funds mature, I believe, in March. So we'll be working with Cedar Park to reinvest those funds. Going forward, in addition to reinvesting what we already have out that will mature, we've been working with the Walker Partners, the design firm, to refine the cash flow expectations of the construction schedule. We'll stay in touch closely with those expectations so we can time our investments to match that. And Leander has closed on its second loan in November of 2022, so that's $39 million that has now been moved into a construction account. So we will be working to invest a good portion of those proceeds. I'm happy to answer any questions, and then I have a favor to ask Madam the President.
Okay. Any questions?
Can I
Yes,
ask my
Mr.
favor?
Powers, you have a favor. Please ask away.
Can I tell one Sam story?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Got
There's no
approval from the
deliberation.
law
So,
here, so.
so I think most of you know that Sam and I worked briefly together, and this is a water-related story, so it is germane to the meeting. So.
Yes, very much
But
so.
so I hadn't been at Cedar Park very long, and Sam comes into my office late in the afternoon, and his face was fallen, and he just looked like, he had been run over by something. And he told me, he said, I think we're going to run out of water. I think we're going to run out of water, or we might run out of water this weekend. And the reason is PEC, a transformer had blown. And so, I guess I just stared blankly at him and said, well, guess we'll get through it. I would hope that if, of course, the PEC got the power restored and we didn't run out of water. But I would hope that if Sam were telling this story, he would think highly of me, that I didn't overreact and, get up in his business about poor planning. But the truth is that I had no idea what a big deal that would be. I actually, truth be told, was thinking, well, you know, the plant will shut down, PEC will get it fixed, we'll restart the plant, you know, what's the big deal? So the moral of that story is good secrets make good friends, and Sam is a good friend, and I wish him well. But thank you for letting me have that time to share that story.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have a resolution before us.
Make a motion to approve. Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. All right. Item 6B, consider a resolution authorizing the president to execute supplemental contract number 20 with Walker Partners for Phase 1C water treatment expansion and Phase 2 land rights and stakeholder coordination project.
Thank you, Madam President. The title really doesn't tell you anything about what this item is, but the contract name is so long, that's really about all we can say in the resolution. But this is about the permanent power project for the Phase 2 deep water intake. We haven't talked about that in a while. So for the audience, we had completed a temporary power project to get power down to the construction site for the deep water intake. And then meanwhile, we are working on a permanent power that will be able to run those very large pumps that we'll be installing down there in the other facilities. So we have been working on this for years. There are approximately 240 properties that have been affected by this, either through right-of-way entries and looking at various options for routes and negotiating of land rights. And this has been one of the most complex elements of the entire project. BCRUA budgeted almost $6 million for land rights, including $2 million for land costs. And so we have been working through that. We've acquired almost all of the easements. Once we get all these properties in place, then the PEC will be able to start construction of the permanent power project. So we just need that done by the end of the project, so we have about 5 years to get that done. This one particular section we're going to talk about today, some of you that were on the board may remember that the permanent power that is coming from miles away from the west actually is going to cut down from Highway 1431, following some existing power line alignments and to get to the pump station. So what was originally planned was it was going to follow some power lines through the subdivision called North Rim. And through a lot of discussions with the residents of North Rim, the board voted to take a alternate route that would not require improvements along the main cul-de-sac. And so we called that the southern route. And so what this is about is the southern route. And the southern route actually goes across Sandy Creek itself. So it's got some pretty big terrain that will need to be navigated. So after we had talked to you about North Rim a couple of years ago, our consultant, electrical engineering consultant, M&S is their name, they had started working on the easements and really had gotten to the point of getting those easements procured and doing some preliminary design along with that. So then we met with PEC on last September, and we reviewed all of the alignments and to get ready to get the design going for the permanent power project. And they decided that there wasn't enough information, the design wasn't robust enough for them to use to start the final design. So they asked for more design, which would require more surveying and more easement acquisitions. I believe a lot of this resulted from the fact that they had just finished constructing the temporary power project, and they saw what it was going to take as far as maybe having to put in some access roads along the alignment to be able to get to maintain the permanent project, which they will end up owning after we're done. So this is a result of the additional services that are going to be needed to get them that information. I think that the estimate is $199,150. I believe that this will be more towards the final design level, so when we get to final design, it shouldn't be as costly to get the permanent powered project design through this area. M&S came in with a much higher cost, and Aaron Archer did a pretty good job of getting that reduced down to this number. So so we're asking your approval to add this as a subcontract to Walker Partners contract for the whole design of the permanent power project. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So just for clarification, the new total is the 7.6 and the previous total was the 7.445, correct? So that's the difference we're talking about, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, just want to make sure. That's what
Any other questions? All right.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Is approved. Item 6C, consider a resolution authorizing the president to execute supplemental contract number 2 with Walker Partners for BCRUA Phase 1D water treatment plant expansion.
Thank you, Madam President. This item is related to moving forward with our Phase 1D water treatment plant. I'm going to ask Jason to come back up because he is the author of the design, and so we are at a point that we're about to bid the Phase 1D water treatment plant, and we need to contract with Walker Partners to do the construction phase services. Do you want to present that, or do you want to ask?
Go ahead.
Let me keep going.
I'll help you out.
So this will be really like construction, inspection, all of the reviews of the submittals, monitoring the contractor, getting them paid for the 20-month construction period. We're also adding something, some commissioning and startup services. We did find that our contractor, while they can build a plant, they aren't necessarily thinking about how to get it ready for operations. So we do have some of that in here that we didn't have before. There's also, while this is very similar to Phase 1C, there are some added components that make this a bigger project. So the Operations Committee spent a lot of time on this, and ultimately the contract amendment price is estimated to be $1,437,119. This is basically a time and materials contract, so this is a cap, and that may not be exceeded, but if everything goes very smoothly, we would expect to come in under this budget. And we will be opening bids next month. So that was a record time. Thank you, Jason. Any questions for me or Jason?
Well, that's exciting. And I appreciate just that forethought of the OC just to hash that out, that we're going to bake in some of those other aspects that we're definitely going to benefit from. So that's great. All right. Resolution is before us.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All right, motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. All right, thank you. Okay, and now is item number 7, closing comments, and we're gonna talk about our favorite engineer who is moving on to do different things. We are very fortunate to have had Sam Roberts a part of the BCRUA conception, inception, and here to this day. And he's also, we're in good hands because there's a really great team around him this whole time working on this project, so very familiar. And in his stead, we will have a new member of the CM from City Manager's Office from Cedar Park, and I believe Eric Rauschenberg is going to introduce this gentleman. So please come up.
Thank you, Madam President and Board. I'm Eric Rauschenberg, Director of Public Works and Utilities, and I would like to introduce Chris Koppel. Chris Koppel is one of our Assistant City Managers. He's worked for the city for 8 years, is that right? And so now he's got the short straw, so he's got Public Works and Utilities out for us, and so he'll be a familiar face for y'all, but we're in good hands. He's very intelligent, he's a very nice guy, and he's a great leader, so we're looking forward to having him on the team.
Great, thank you. Welcome, Chris. So I believe we have a couple of different presentations for Mr. Sam Roberts, and I believe Mr. Grimsbow would like to begin.
Madam President, Dan Grimsbow, Executive Director of Leander. And I've known Sam a short time, a year and a half, but it's been a ride. He is a founding father of the BCRUA, so I think the BCRUA is really at a turning point. And so this momentum that the OC group is providing him is the miniature version of the deepwater intake where it was kind of at when he decided he's leaving. So it's 12 inches, about 120 feet deep, and 30 feet in diameter. And I think this is the turning point, and this is why I thought it was appropriate from the OC group to provide him this, because I think this is the turning point where we're saying we're going to have a big plant, and it's going to be producing water for multiple cities throughout this region. And Sam was definitely a founding father, and now he looks like the founding father with all that gray. Probably from this project alone, from some of the history I heard. So with that said, I'm going to pass it on to the rest of the group. If the board members who haven't signed would certainly sign this, and wish him, as the Navy, fair winds and following seas, and enjoy your time off.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll do closing comments unless there's anyone else out in the audience that would like to share anything, any sea stories and such. Please.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Board. Dan, thank you so much for spearheading that. That means a lot to me, because one of the things that is really satisfying to know is that I'm leaving at the time that the deepwater intake started construction before I left. And I would have loved to have been here when it was finished, but it was always a goal to at least get it started under construction. And this team is what made that happen. Y'all, everybody. I will say, just a little history, I mean, the BCRUA literally started with a phone call from the Director of Utilities in Round Rock, a guy named Tom Clark. Literally called me one day and said, "Hey Sam, HDR just finished doing a study for us and determined that Lake Travis is the best long-term water supply for the city of Round Rock. And we would like to know if you all want to talk about doing a regional water system." And within 60 days, we had an MOU. And at that time, LCRA owned Leander's water treatment plant. And we started meeting anyway. They came to the meetings, and by 2008, articles of incorporation were done, and the board was created. I think we had our first. I think the articles were approved in 2007, and then the bylaws, and the first meeting was in 2008, and the rest is kind of history. Phase 1 was completed in 2012, and here we are today. And I have to say, and y'all will be able to say this someday, but for me personally, professionally, this of all the unbelievably fantastic projects I've worked on in 31 years, and there's been a lot of them. This is definitely ranked up there, the highest, the one I'm proud to have been a part of. And the board, this board has been, it has done so much to create the system. But anyhow, I will be proud of that for the rest of my life and cherish all the moments with the whole team. It's been a pleasure. And thank you so much. And somebody's going to get the one when you finish. So, with that.
Okay, thank you. Right.
Madam President, if I could.
Yes.
So Sam, I just want to, our relationship has been just professionally through the BCRUA, but it's always an honor for me to be present when somebody retires that has made a true stamp on their service towards their community. And this is a big one. I mean, when you talk about, I did air quality as engineering. It blows away. It blows in, it blows out. Water is a different animal, and to be a lead in creating a water supply that's going to serve this area and millions of people for the history of mankind, that's a big deal. And I just applaud you and of course the people that you surrounded yourself with. But thank you for what you've done to this community, because it will be felt for a long, long time. And you deserve a big applause and an attaboy for doing that. So I just want to give you a sincere thank you from the city of Round Rock and for all of us. So thank you for that.
Sam, congratulations and on your retirement, 31 years of service to municipalities, and that's something quite an accomplishment. So as Councilmember Baker says, the city of Round Rock has always appreciated having a good friend in Cedar Park to work with us on projects. And I was reminded recently that there's still a phase 2 and a phase 3 to the plant itself, so it's only going to get bigger and better. But wishing you nothing but well wishes and look forward to seeing you. And hopefully they take you off the 24-hour on-call list. So going forward. But thank you very much.
Go ahead.
Sam and I met when we were baby engineers, so I've been fortunate to have him in my life for these all of our different places that we went to, and it was great. He was one of the reasons I came to BCRUA, because I knew if he was here, it was going to be a well-run, committed organization. One thing that has been great about Sam is he will really listen to you, and he's very thoughtful. You could see his mind churning, and then when he comes out with his thoughtful response, then you could take that to the bank. And it's really nice to have somebody patient like that can really be the voice of reason, and he's really, in my mind, more of a statesman, way above an engineer. He's got all those qualities and can pull it all together and keep us moving forward, and we're going to miss him.
You can go. Congratulations, Sam, on a career of excellence. My only regret is that I didn't get a chance to work with you more than I have. And I really appreciate the BCRUA and it's, what you helped found. I found it a very easy thing to defend against those in my own city who might think it wasn't a good idea. As an engineer, I think it's some of the best forethought I've seen in my entire 27 years doing this stuff. So thank you for that, and just enjoy everything that's ahead of you still.
So, when I moved here in 2005, I didn't know that much about the area. And through the years, I'd get more involved in the city and outran, volunteering for the city, being on an HOA board, getting more involved in projects, joining 4B, and then joining council. And one of the things I can say about Sam is it doesn't matter who you are in the city or your education level or your experience working on projects or even understanding how government works. Sam could always relate and talk to people. He could talk to people at the HOA level. He could talk to people who were getting involved in the city boards. He could talk to council members. He could work with, every expert we've ever dealt with. And I think that, Cedar Park, Round Rock, and Leander on BCRUA are successful because of your leadership. And I'm going to miss you because you meant a lot to this whole community. This whole region is where it's at because of you. There's no project in this region that doesn't have your name stamped on it some way, And if I could get my way, I'd figure it out how to name part of this project after you because it's about you. Thank you.
Sam, and I've known you for most of my legal career. I met you very early on, and in the types of meetings that I'm usually invited to, there's contention in those meetings. But the good thing about it is that in those meetings, even when there's contention, you're always very constructive in your comments and constructive in what you bring to the table in that discussion. You've always been very calm and thoughtful, I can echo that, and intelligent about the issue at hand. And the discussion that you bring has, in my mind, has always made for a better outcome and for better problem solving. And so I've enjoyed seeing you and listening to you, and I've learned a lot from you. And you've had a lot of foresight and thoughtfulness in those conversations that I've witnessed over the years. So I just want to thank you for that, and been privileged to work with you.
So I'm probably not going to say a whole lot because I'll say more tomorrow night, and I might even cry then. But I just, in this regard for this board, I sat in your office and you walked me through the entire timeline, and I appreciate that time so much because I'm not an engineer. This is not my background, and I feel so much more prepared to be on this board because of the time that you've taken. And there's been many times where there could be potential crunchiness or wrinkles or certain things, and he would call me before a meeting and update me, and we've developed a great friendship, and then I was able to offer you some medical advice when you reached out. So we've forged like a different kind of relationship, other than just like a mentor and leader, and I'm very, very grateful for that. And I'll save the rest for tomorrow because I might get a little upset. But on behalf of the Brushy Creek Regional Utility Authority, with our greatest appreciation to Sam Roberts, Operations Committee Member, 2007 to 2023, thank you for all your time and leadership throughout the years. We appreciate your dedication and commitment to the Brushy Creek Regional Utility Authority.
Very special. Thank you. Yes.
should do a group photo.
We, I think we
But
all
we'll,
need to be
yeah,
down there.
we'll adjourn, we'll adjourn. So if no one, if everyone is good, no one has anything more they want to say in the public forum, we will adjourn the meeting.